suddenly the door burst open and snow came in, and in walked two Greenlandic ladies with with a bottle of Jägermeister. And I was just like, my gosh. They were hilarious. They're putting on all their clothes and you're getting ready to go. And I said, are we going? And they go, yeah, we're going. And so I went, oh, wait for me. And this little Australian running after these Greenlandic ladies.
Welcome back to Travel Time Stories with Shannon, where real journeys meet real stories and real healing happens one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Shannon, coming to you from the Lone Star State of Texas. Some weeks I open up and share pieces of my own life story, from my travel adventures to the winding road of healing and personal growth. And other weeks, I'm joined by my best friend and co-host, Ann from Missouri, as we sit down with special guests who share their experiences, insights, and expertise to help all of us along our own journeys. Today, Ann is here with me. Hey, Ann.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today.
And today's guest truly embodies what it means to live a life of adventure, not just once, but over and over again across decades. Belinda Coker has been traveling the world for more than 40 years, starting in the 80s, long before we had smartphones, social media, or it was easy to catch a flight. From working on a solar power project in the mountains of Ladakh. Wait, did I say that right?
Ladakh.
Ladakh. That's right. God, I practiced ahead of time too. To solo hiking across Australia's Red Centre and crossing Greenland's Arctic Circle alone. Adventure has been a constant thread in her life. Now in her 60s, Belinda travels full time, building her life around slow travel and multi-day hiking, while helping others reconnect with their own sense of adventure through her blog Soul Treader and the House Sitting Collective. Belinda, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Anne. It's lovely to be here.
As we say on Travel Time Stories, grab your favorite beverage and let's get into it, ladies. So, Belinda, you began traveling in a time that feels almost unimaginable now. No Google Maps, no social media, no instant booking. What first sparked that initial long journey in the 1980s?
Okay. Thank you, Anne. Well, my first trip was in between high school and university in New Zealand and Australia. I was born in New Zealand and then I spent most of my adult life in Australia. And for a lot of New Zealanders, it's called your big OE. So it's your overseas experience. And I think because we're so isolated, everybody goes off for a year, maybe straight after school or straight after university. We've got a lot of reciprocal working holiday visas with countries such as the UK, Canada. I mean, my children are working in Whistler and Vernon in Canada. And if any Canadians are here and they do go up to Whistler, that's why it's just full of Australians, because we do have these reciprocal work agreements. And so it was very normal for a young 19, 20-year-old. I worked for a couple of years to save up some money, and it was very normal for people to sort of spread their wings and take off and then come back 1 or 2 years later and settle down and either complete uni, go to university, or get a job or whatever. So it was, in a cultural sense, it's not a unique thing for New Zealanders to do, and Australians. So that was why I started. Now, a lot of my friends decided to take off and go to Europe, and I didn't. I had a flatmate who had been to Southeast Asia, and I was, looking through all of his photos saying, "Oh my gosh, this looks amazing!" And I was so excited to do it. So I got a one-way ticket to Bali and started at the southern end of Southeast Asia and just worked my way out and ended up in Ladakh, which is northern India. And I only really was, I meant to stay for a month in India, and I ended up I got another 6-month visa and ended up staying seven months there, actually. Yes.
That's amazing. Wow.
It's incredible.
I wished America had programs like that
I know.
for us.
Yeah.
when we're young, before we get settled in and do that our kids and us can experience things like that. But we don't have
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the few countries that doesn't, and it is a shame because usually these are reciprocal work visas. You know, a lot of people would actually like to go and work in America, work in a ski resort, or and experience America, especially at that young age, because America's a great country. It's got so much to offer, and especially in terms of your wilderness and your skiing and all sorts of things. I mean, it's unlike Australia, which is about the same size. America's got a lot of things between the two coasts, whereas Australia
Right.
doesn't really have much between the two coasts. There's a lot of desert and a great
Hmm.
hike that I once did, but yeah.
How was Bali and just the whole Southeast Asia experience? We haven't been yet, but that's one place that we're considering going. So I would love to hear some more about that.
I am so glad that I went 40 years ago. 40 years ago, I started in Kuta, and Kuta was seriously a small village. And so you had Kuta right up to Seminac, and they were small little villages, and now it's just one large strip. There were a couple of large hotels. I don't actually recall the large hotels, but because that wasn't where I was staying. But I can remember that there was a lot of very, very small guest houses, and it was safe. And there was so much farmland in Kuta itself. Kuta was surrounded by farmland, and you used to stay in these guest houses and wake up in the morning and open up your door, and there'd be a pot of tea and two bananas sitting outside your door. And that was just
Oh,
like a
Wow.
complimentary breakfast. I think I probably spent about $5 a day. That is how cheap it was. So now
Gosh.
I think Bali is very, very developed now, and they are having a lot of problems with tourism or over tourism as well. Yeah, it wouldn't be one of my first places to go in Southeast Asia. Yeah, we can talk about that. Bali was lovely, and it was a great place to actually start my travels. And then I worked my way up through Indonesia. And back then, the next islands, Java and Sumatra, which are the islands north of Bali, the main islands, they were very, very rural. You would go to a town and no one would speak English whatsoever. It was very raw. We could have even gone to some places and they may not have seen other foreigners for quite some time. I then moved up to Thailand and did a circuit. Now it's quite funny back then because there were no cell phones, there wasn't email, there wasn't any form of texting, WhatsApp, anything like that. So there was a lot of people sort of doing the same trip, and we all had a book called Southeast Asia on a Shoestring, written by Maureen and Tony Wheeler, the founders of Lonely Planet. And I had the very first edition of Southeast Asia on a Shoestring, which was a yellow book. So it was a yellow Lonely Planet book. It was the very first Lonely Planet book. It was a yellow cover, and it just had a simple drawing on the front. And everybody had these books. Everyone had
Wow.
the Yellow Travel Bible. And that was how we kind of knew where to go next, because they had done so much research, but it was only probably about 5 years earlier that this book had come out. And so they had spent years, a couple of years sort of traveling around Southeast Asia, and everything was so well documented. But there was a real path that, backpackers, and I'm going to use the term backpackers for people who were traveling in this fashion, because we all had backpackers and no one ever dreamed of having a suitcase. So backpackers, not the backpackers that America would say, people who hike in the wilderness are called backpackers. So that is kind of like an Americanism. And so the
Hmm.
rest of the world, you have backpackers as in people who who travel around with a backpack and, for a year or so in a gap year. So there would be quite a few people, and you'd meet others, other Antipodeans or people from Canada or people from the UK, people from Europe. And it was so much fun. It really was. The way we communicated was through post restant. So post restant was a service that the post office would put had. And so what you'd do is say I met you on an island, Shannon, and I said, well, I'm going to India next, and I'm probably going to Delhi. And you'd say, oh, really? Oh, Anne, do you want to go to Delhi? And Anne would say, oh, yeah, okay, maybe. Well, let me think about that. I'll tell you what, let's have a think about that. Maybe, I don't know. Because there was it's almost like nobody really had a plan. You just did what you felt like at the time. It was great. I would get to Delhi and I would write you a letter and I'd say, hey, Shannon and Ann, lovely to meet you in Pangang or whatever. I'm in Delhi, but I'm headed up to Ladakh. So anyway, so Shannon and Anne, you arrive in Delhi and you go to the post office and you stand in line for your post restant and you get your letters from your mum and dad and, and aunt and uncle or whoever, and you get messages from people like me. But I got a message from Belinda. She's on her way up to Ladakh. Oh, yeah, I heard Ladakh's pretty good. Okay, well, let's go there. And so that was kind of how we communicated. It was really funny. And you kind of had this uncanny sense that you would get somewhere and you would meet Shannon and Ann that you met in Koh Phangan, or you would just meet other people. And I met so many great people. It really was fun. Yeah.
I was going to say, what an incredible way to have such diversity and meeting all these different
Mm,
people and enriching your life
yeah.
in this manner.
If we wanted to make a phone call, you would have to go to maybe a post office where they would have telephones and you would have to wait in line and it would be too expensive for us. A phone call would have been too expensive for us. You would have
Yeah.
to do a collect call and your parents would pay for it and, get on the other end of the phone and say, oh, thank God, she's all right. Yeah.
Those were the days, weren't they?
Oh, they were.
Exactly.
It was
Love
it
that
was much
you
simple. Sorry.
guys had the post office thing where you could
Yeah.
get your messages. I mean, I
Mm,
wondered how you did that, really.
yeah. Yeah. That was the way that we communicated, and and that was the way that you communicated with your family back home as well. Just before I left Australia the last time, I found a big box of letters from all my friends and my mother and my
Oh,
grandmother, or both of my grandmothers, just letters, and they were sent to post restant. And so back then, airmail would have taken quite a lot longer than it does now. So
Yeah.
yes.
a letter might have taken 3 weeks to get to us. Mum kind of had to have an idea of where I would be, and
Right.
yeah, it
Yeah.
worked.
That's amazing.
It just worked for some reason.
So I have to ask you, looking back, do you think you were brave or just curious enough not to know what to be afraid of yet at that age?
If it was my daughters doing this, I would be probably more concerned because right now we've got, the dark web. We've got all sorts of,
Yeah.
horrible things happening. I think back
Yep.
then life was a lot more simple. I was a pretty young 20-year-old wandering around with a backpack. Yes, I could have run into trouble, but I kind of feel that the world is a far more dangerous place now. So I think because so many other people were doing it and it was very rare that I was on my own. I left on my own, but I hardly ever traveled on my own. I just met other people and it was great. It's almost very similar to what happens on the Camino now. So people go to walk the Camino de Santiago, whether they go the northern route or the French way or the Portuguese way, and they will often meet other people to walk with. And it's very rare for people just not to sort of find a cohort of people to walk with each day. And it's not dissimilar to that.
Yes,
Yeah. That's amazing.
it is.
I want to hear about your hiking experiences.
Do you want me to tell you how I got back into hiking first? when I was 55, I'm now 60. When I was 55, I had, I was a mom. I was working in the corporate world, and I hadn't hiked for around about 35 years. So I used to hike a lot when I was in high school and back when I was in New Zealand. And I had done a lot of travel, but it was travel. I used to travel in the pointy part of the plane and stay in hotels. And I did a lot of business travel, like a lot. And kind of looked in the mirror one day and I thought, I feel like I've lost myself. I felt burnt out. I really felt a middle-aged, almost like I had been wearing a corporate hat, a mom hat, a partner hat, a friend hat, but I hadn't worn a Belinda hat for a long time. And so that was the day that I started hiking. Well, I joined a meetup group and I started to go on a hike. And I started off by going on a hike. I went and bought some boots and off I went. So I got into hiking fairly quickly, multi-day hiking. I did get into it gradually. I had done quite a bit of it when I was in New Zealand, so it wasn't something new to me. But at the same time, I probably hadn't moved my body like that for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what it's like when when you get to that age, you just
Mhm.
everything else takes precedence. And my children were right at the very end of high school and they were starting to have their own lives. And that was at a time when I was able to look inward and say, where has the adventure gone? It was as though I was sort of stuck and I thought, where's that person who was always chasing adventure? Where has she gone? So I went out on a hike, a day hike, and I just felt so good. I was probably the youngest on this hike. Wasn't that long. It was probably about 17 kilometers, which is, I think is about 13 miles, but it was quite steep descent and ascent. And I remember just feeling like the new kid in the school and everybody else was just racing down there and racing back up. And I was the youngest. Everybody else was in their 70s and 80s. And I
Oh my
thought,
gosh.
oh my God, I want to be like that when I'm that age. I do. And so that's when I started to embrace getting back into hiking and nature and movement, because when you hike, you use almost every muscle in your body because the
Right.
ground is uneven. You're walking over stones and rocks and, and roots. And you really have to you have to be aware of your surroundings the whole time. Whereas if you're going for a walk around in suburbia, you're doing the same pace over and over again, and you can completely zone out and suddenly go, am I back home already? I might have said hello to Mr. Smith doing his lawn and to the flower lady down the shop, but it would have been something which is kind of repetitive. Yes, it's doing you, but because you're moving, you're walking, but it's not moving every muscle. And so I felt when I got back, I felt so good. So then I thought I will start multi-day hiking. So I started by buying a tent and going out and actually doing a 7-day walk with my tent and my backpack and my sleeping bag. And that was my very first multi-day hike for 35 years. So that is one type of hiking that I do. And now back to your question. I know I've taken a long time to get back to your question. I do apologize. I'm getting there. So there are several ways of hiking where it's multi-day hiking. And one of the things I love about multi-day hiking is that you go into a country like Portugal or Scotland or Germany or any of these say European countries, or New Zealand. New Zealand is another one that does hut to hut hiking as well. And you can actually stay in huts, or you can stay in inns. So hut to hut is where it's kind of like in between in hiking and wilderness hiking, because the huts are not in towns. They'll be on the trail in mountains, and famous ones are things like the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is a trail that goes around Mont Blanc. And so that there's loads in Europe. And of course, New Zealand has 900 huts, and they're all government owned, and some of them are actually free.
Wow.
So hut to hut is where you don't need to carry your tent. Sometimes you do, depending on where it is, you'll need to carry your sleeping bag, but sometimes you don't. And some of them, like the European ones, breakfast and dinner is included. That would be half board. And so you then buy a pack of lunch or something like that. And then you've got in hiking, which is going from one town to another and staying in an inn. Now, even though the Camino de Santiago, they're not inns, they're our Bergers are kind of like they've got big dormitories, but some of them do have private rooms. It's still the same thing. It's still an end-to-end hiking where you're going from one town to another. So you can either eat where you're staying, or you can go out to a local restaurant or get breakfast or whatever. And end-to-end hiking normally has luggage transfer as well. You don't have to use it, but a lot of people do. So all you need to do is carry your day pack. So you've got wilderness camping where
Nice.
you carry everything. Backpacking is what it's called in America. So you're carrying your tent, your sleeping bag, your cooker, your food, your water, everything. And then you've got hut to hut where you really only need to carry your clothes, and some places like New Zealand you do need your sleeping bag, and in European huts the food is supplied for you. And then you've got in hiking, which is, for example, the West Highland Way in Scotland, which is one of the oldest, made up of very old routes and Roman roads, or the Rheinstag, which is a lovely trail that goes up the Rhine in Germany, and you can stop off at all the wineries and have a little
Wow.
a little
That
tipple.
sounds heavenly. Yes.
So in hiking is great for those who don't or can't carry all their gear, and they just want to carry a day pack with the bare essentials and have their luggage transferred, or they can carry everything. But they don't need to carry a tent, they don't need to carry a sleeping bag, they don't need to carry a sleeping pad, and they usually don't need to carry a cooker as well.
I did not realize that
Wow.
there were that many different types of hiking, and I definitely didn't realize that they had, like, the end to end. I knew about
Mm,
the hut to hut,
No.
but I
mm,
didn't know anything about, like, the end to end, that kind of
yeah,
thing. So that's
yeah.
very interesting to learn.
Yeah, it's very, very popular in Europe, and almost every country is a famous hike which does this. There's one that my partner's looking for at the moment, the Peter Pard, and it goes down from the top of the Netherlands all the way down the bottom, past cute windmills and tulip fields and all that sort of thing. So
Wow.
that would be and that would be flat.
Gorgeous.
So
Yeah.
Netherlands flat, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Cork will be flat as a pancake. So that'd be a great one for people to get stuck into as their first one. So yeah.
I
Yeah,
was going to
that's a great
say,
starter hike.
yep,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
good trainer hike.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I may have to look into that one.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Rhine one in Germany. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I just need to mention also probably the most famous in hikes are the Camino de Santiago's, which gained huge popularity in recent years. And the Caminos are getting busier and busier every year, but some of those are less strenuous than others. And actually, you can do Caminos. The Caminos actually start from all over Europe, and they sort of converge on the main Camino going through Spain. So you can actually do Camino as far away as Sweden. I think there's even one coming from Russia. So it kind of branches out like, veins and capillaries throughout Europe.
Wow.
But you
I
go the
had
other
no
way.
idea.
Yeah, yeah.
You you gotta end in Santiago. Yeah.
I wish America had something like that set up where you could hike and have different places to
Yeah.
stay. I
I
don't know if
think
we do or not, but
you do. You have one
we
one
do.
hike, yep, and it's called the Oregon Trail, the Oregon Coastal Trail.
Yes. Okay.
So that runs down the whole coast of Oregon, and I think you can just do parts of it, but that is an in. Yeah, that's the only one that I know of.
I was gonna say
Okay.
I didn't even realize we even had that one. I know we have plenty
Uh-uh.
of hiking trails all
Yeah,
over the United States.
you got some. Yeah,
Famous ones even, like the Appalachian Trail and different ones like that.
yeah,
But I was not familiar that we had an end to end on the Oregon
yeah,
trails.
yeah, yeah,
That's good to know.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Oregon's
So
on our list to visit, so we may have to
yeah.
Right.
check into that.
Yeah, yeah. And if any of your listeners are interested in finding a little bit more about what an in hike looks like, I've got a great series on the West Highland Way, which is Scotland's famous trail, and that's a pure into trail, and you don't need to do the whole lot. You can just do 3 days or whatever. But that's a great one. And another good one that I have on my website as well is the Fisherman's Trail in southern Portugal. So that goes from end to end as well. So that goes from right down the southwest tip of Portugal and goes all the way up to just south of Lisbon along the coast. And that is a little bit more strenuous, but for those who feel that they're, capable walkers, the Fisherman's Trail is really beautiful and Portugal's lovely. I mean, the food, the wine, the people, I mean, what's not to
Yeah,
love?
I can imagine.
Right.
Right?
You know?
Exactly.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch the one on Scotland because
Yeah,
we
me
plan
too.
to come back. And so
Mm,
when we come back to
Yeah,
Scotland, I
yeah,
definitely would love to do that.
yeah,
that would be
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. And if any of your listeners are unsure about doing one of these on your own, there are a lot of tours now that do cater for these walk-in holidays, and they organize all the accommodation, and all you need to do is turn up with a list of items that they've given you to bring. So that's another way of doing it. And there are two types of tours that you can do for the into hikes, and they do hut to hut as well. So they book all the huts for you, they book all the inns for you, and they transfer your luggage. There's two types: guided, and then there's self-guided as well. And the self-guided ones are great, especially if you're traveling with somebody else, or you might be neurodivergent and you don't really want to spend time with other people. For any reason you want a self-guided, you're basically given all the maps and a contact, so you can contact at any stage and just say, look, I'm here, and they check up on you all the time as well. So it's
Good.
kind of like doing a hike on your own, but with a safety net. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really
So that's
good.
yeah. So I do have
So,
information on my site as well
perfect.
about what that
Okay.
what that looks like. Yeah, which
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So is there a
Awesome.
moment on those hikes when fear shows up? And if
I was
so,
just going to
how
ask
do you
that.
work with it?
Right.
Okay, so I've had a couple, and both of them have been bad weather. The first one was when I was doing the solo hike across Greenland. When I say across Greenland, I was going from the edge of the ice cap over to the sea. So it's around about, I'd like to say, I can't remember exactly, but about 250 kilometers, about 170 miles. So I took 10 days to do the hike, because on the second to last day, I got caught in one of the huts. So they've got little huts on this trail, but the huts rudimentary. They're one room. They've got a stove, and the huts were originally built for the hunters, and so they're little hunting huts. And but they're very cute. They're red, almost like Norwegian. They're very cute little wooden huts. And this particular trail actually is an old Inuit hunting route, so you actually follow it along. And I had very, very hot polar sun. Would have been 30 degrees, but it felt like 40 degrees. And I would like to say it felt like about 100 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Because the sun was so strong, and it's also
Yeah.
Yeah.
24 hours light. So, and so normally I sleep in my tent, but this time I was staying in the huts because I just couldn't sleep in the night, because there was no night. But I did wake up one night, and I got up to go to the toilet, and right outside my tent was a reindeer, just like grazing away.
My
I
gosh.
heard this sound, and I thought, oh, is that water? Because I was right by a lake, and there was this big reindeer just munching away right outside my tent. It was quite funny.
How awesome to see that.
But anyway, my second to last night, the weather changed and it got very cold. I bunkered down in this hut, and I thought, right, okay, well, if it's foul weather tomorrow, I'll just stay another night. I've got enough food. I had enough food, and I only had one more day to make it to the coast, just to Samut, but I had to go over a pass. And And this little wooden hut was held down by huge wire cables, steel cables, to a rock foundation. And so the storm came through and the hut was going like this, bang, 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 bang,
My
like
God.
this. And I thought to myself, this hut has been here for 30 years. Nothing's going to happen to it. Something would have happened to it before now, because I'm pretty sure that in the winter they get some gnarly weather. Anyway, so the next morning I woke up and there was snow everywhere. I said, oh my gosh. So I thought, right, okay, so I can wait here because it wasn't heavy snow and it didn't look like it was going to continue to snow. I knew I had enough food. I had enough food for another 3 days, so I was fine. And I knew that there were other hikers who were coming in behind me, but whether or not they would have stopped at the hut before, previous hut, I didn't know. Anyway, so later on that night, this was the second day, suddenly the door burst open and snow came in, and in walked two Greenlandic ladies with the bottle of Jägermeister. And I was just like, my gosh, but they were hilarious. And the next morning, there was more snow. The next morning, they're putting on all their clothes and you're getting ready to go. And I said, are we going? And they go, yeah, we're going. And so I went, oh, wait for me. And this little Australian running after these Greenlandic ladies who just, for them, this is just normal going over this pass.
Yeah.
I've had some funny stories.
That's so great. I love that one. I love the Jägermeister. Belinda, a lot of people struggle with the idea of solo travel, but they also struggle with the reality of it. What would you say to someone who feels drawn to it, but hey, I'm a little afraid to do this?
If you are afraid to go solo, maybe start off and go on a tour and meet other people. Maybe start off with that. Or there's another option, which I think is great for solo women, and that is maybe house sitting. And I'll explain why house sitting is such a great thing for solo women to do, because you don't have to sit at a restaurant by yourself. You don't have to try and
Yeah.
negotiate your way back to a hotel by yourself. You don't have to be in a strange hotel by yourself. You can be in somebody's house, at nighttime, stroking a cat, watching a movie or something. And then during the day, you can go out and, see the Eiffel Tower or, visit a museum or something like that. So that's a good option. The other one I would say is go on a tour. However, tours cost money. House sitting is free accommodation. Traveling by yourself can be very scary when you first do it. And because I've had years and years of experience with traveling by myself, especially during my years of business travel as well. And so I got to spend a lot of meals sitting at a restaurant by myself. And some people like it. I personally don't anymore. It doesn't particularly bother me, but I don't really, really enjoy it. I don't really enjoy that meal for
Yeah.
me. And that's just me. So especially if you're at a touristy place where, everybody else is sitting at tables with other people, having a good time and enjoying yourself. So one of the first things I would say is to try and find somebody else that you can meet up with. And there are a lot of Facebook groups for different destinations. For traveling here or traveling there, you can always find a Facebook group or a meetup group.
That you're traveling full time in your 60s, how has your relationship with adventure changed?
It's become normal. So, for example, the next hike that I have planned is a hike through 3 back-to-back hikes in Greece. And instead of going, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, we're going to Greece, I kind of I book the tickets and I look at it very methodically, almost like sometimes I kind of feel that the excitement has gone out of it, because I look at it now, I look at these hikes now as a job, for my business.
Yeah.
Yes, it is exciting going to a new country. I'm excited about going to Athens, but I think it's become very, very normal to go to Athens and do 3 back-to-back hikes. And, is that a good thing?
What assumptions about aging do you think need to be challenged, especially when it comes to travel and physical exploration?
So my beliefs were challenged that day that I went on the hike, and the other ladies, or there were men and women, were in their 70s and 80s. So that to me was a huge wake up call, and I feel that travel and exercise, I think it really does give you longevity. Because, definitely exercise. We all know that exercise is very good for you, but travel gives you something to look forward to. It opens your eyes, especially if you do something which is immersive travel, like slow travel. It can just be wonderful, just walking down to a village, going to the marqueta, trying to speak a little bit of broken Spanish, and then getting out Google Translate, and just all those sorts of things, and coming back and making a Spanish dish, and anything like that. Maybe in Portugal, you're not in some cute village, and you've got all the old men there playing the dominoes. Well, I don't
Right.
know, but experience that, and just to be able to sit there. I think as we get older, we're far more open to just sitting down and just people watching and just soaking in the atmosphere. I know when I was very young, I would just be racing here and racing there and, doing all these exciting things. But I think as we get older, it's just about having an experience and,
Yes.
soaking it all in. And that's just, for me, that's just a wonderful, and it's invigorating as well. It is invigorating. It's because it's
Yes.
relaxing. It's relaxing, but invigorating at the same time. That is possible, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
always feel
Yes.
like I'm taking a moment to literally immerse myself, the culture, the food, the people, uh, when we're doing a slower type travel,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I personally, at this age, enjoy the slow travel way more than having
Yes.
this packed itinerary from
Yeah.
sun up to sundown, and you're just go, 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 go. And then you're
Yeah.
stressing if you don't make it to the next item on the
Yep.
Yeah.
itinerary. And at this
Yeah.
age, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is you need a vacation from your vacation when you
Yes.
get
Yeah.
home
Yeah.
because you're
Yes.
not
Exactly.
taking any time to slow down and just get a little bit
Yeah.
of relaxation in,
Yeah, yeah. And especially those people who are taking, like, the 2 weeks off from their job,
Right.
those 2 weeks, you really need to relax in those 2 weeks, and,
Yes.
and otherwise you just get burnout on all sides of the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, especially
Exactly.
here in America, we don't get enough time off, so I
No,
think
we're
Europe is so much more generous and caring about their people.
exactly. We're lucky here if you get 2 weeks vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
not
just
enough.
no, it's
No,
ridiculous to me
it's
that
not.
and then some places don't even wanna give you 2 weeks vacation. I mean,
Yeah,
out of a year, that's
yeah,
And then they wonder why mental health is so terrible
yeah,
in
yeah,
so many people right now.
yeah,
and why there's
There's no break.
such high job burnout because,
Yeah.
I mean, people don't get time off to rest and recover, and they get tired of the job and just off they go somewhere else.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you feel like you're at your job more than you are at home or with your family, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, who
exactly.
wants
It's not
that?
good. Yeah, no,
No, it's not.
slow travel, it really is. It's one of the best ways to travel. It is. And that's one of the reasons why I like hiking so much, is because, well, usually I'm in the wilderness, but a lot of times in Europe, I am going from town to town. I'm taking my time to get from one place to another. I always used to say this is a 7-day hike, so it's going to take 7 days. I don't do that anymore. I go as far as I can or want to. And then,
Yeah.
if I see a nice campsite, to say, well, it might be lunchtime, doesn't matter. I'm by myself, I might not do that because otherwise I'm twiddling my thumbs waiting for the
Right.
afternoon. But when I'm with my partner and it's a lovely place to settle down, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
that's one of the beauties about when you are traveling, when you are older, is that you do seem to have more time to make those decisions. For example, say you were going to a country and you were going to maybe 5 places in a country, I would always try to build in flexibility. So if I get to place number 3 and I say, oh my gosh, I don't want to go any further. I want to stay here for the remainder of the vacation, for the rest of the week that I've got. I don't want to go to the other places. I want to stay here, and find a little, guest house, if you can't extend your hotel, and not go to these other places. And so I always book my internal travel separately from my long haul, from my international tickets. If I do need to make any changes, I can do so quite easily. That does have its drawbacks, because if you miss a flight or something, for some reason, then the airline has to do everything else. But for me, I've always prioritized my flexibility and to be able to stay in a place longer. Or I get to a place and I go, why am I staying 3 nights here? I don't like this place. I want to go to the next
Yeah.
place, or I want to go elsewhere. Or I like to have flexibility. Yeah. Mm.
I think it's very important when you travel to be
Yeah.
Yes.
flexible and know that, things are going to happen, things are going to change beyond your control, and you just have to kind of go with it and plan around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. And like you say, when you slow down and you're doing slow travel, you connect way more with the places that you're at
Yes.
than
Yeah.
you do any other time. And you also
Yeah.
connect with yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
during that slow
Absolutely.
travel.
Yeah.
Those last couple of trips, we have actually built in some extra time to allow for those things,
Yeah.
to give us time to have a day just to sit and do nothing if we want, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, stay an extra place in a day. Or there were some places we went where we were like, you know what? There's nothing more here to do. Let's
Yeah.
just move on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
So one thing I love about your work is that it's not just inspirational, it's practical. So
Yes.
tell us more about the House Sitting Collective and how it makes long-term travel sustainable.
Okay. So it's not just long-term travel. It can be short travel as well.
Okay.
So it's an interesting way of traveling. And the way that I got into it is when I was traveling for work, and I would travel from hotel to hotel and be stuck in a little room. It might have a desk, it would have a corner chair,
Yeah.
and I would have to go down to the bar downstairs and eat. Yes, it was fine, but I more often than not couldn't open up the window. As I've got older, I get very, very hot at night and I need the window open.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So I started to look at Airbnbs, and, Airbnb has changed a lot from when it
Mm-hmm.
first started. Now it's kind of just, renting out apartments or whatever.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
and often the kitchen is literally just, you'll be lucky if you get a saucepan and a frying pan and a knife that cuts anything. I wanted to stay in a few places for an extended period of time. So a friend of mine said, you could do house sitting. What? And then, you know how Facebook just brings up all this cool stuff you don't even have to say it
When
now.
you
You can
mention
just,
it,
you can
yeah,
just think it, and it
Yeah, if you just
exactly.
think it,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. We
it's
say
there.
we say here in America that's Big Brother listening and they just
Yes.
start sending you stuff.
So I got into it, and I got a 2-week house sit in a place that I wanted to be. And it was in a doctor's mansion looking after a Siamese cat. And I
Goodness.
had, a lounge room, a dining room, a kitchen, great kitchen, air fryer, a slow cooker, everything that you would want in a kitchen, everything that you have in your own kitchen to make a meal. There was a TV with Netflix, all that sort of stuff. So it felt like a home. I got so much work done there for those 2 weeks. It was just incredible. Not only that, it didn't cost me a cent. And all I had to do was look after this cat and also look after the house, but in the way of just make sure that nobody was coming in to burgle it, or if a pipe broke and the place got flooded, I could help deal with that if that ever did happen, or whatever. And so I started to do it on a regular basis, and I realized that it is one of the best ways to travel. It's safe, it's cheap, It's you see some places, you can go to some places that you've never been and really immerse yourself in the culture. We went to Spain and we did Barcelona, Nerja, and Andalusia, and we stayed in house sits for about 3 weeks in each of those places. It was a full immersion. We would take a dog for a walk and we'd go down to the local marqueta or to the local sort of cafe and have our cafe solo in the morning. And it was just amazing. You get to live like a local, and that's pretty special. And Barcelona was great. I
Yes.
mean, we were probably about 20 minutes from central Barcelona. We went
Wow.
into Barcelona about 3 times a week and just enjoyed Barcelona. We probably went into Barcelona about 10 times. If I was to spend 10 days in Barcelona, I would spend a lot of money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's a great way to travel. It's a great way for solo female travelers to travel. You don't need to try and eat at a restaurant by yourself. You can just eat and then just take your glass of wine and sit in front of the fire or the television or whatever. So there are several safety issues that you don't have to be concerned with when you're solo traveling. It's also good for people who are on special diets as well. If you're trying to find a vegan restaurant in a big city, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can make that same vegan meal at home for like $3.
Yeah.
Well, I might be
Right.
exaggerating, but what I'm saying is if you are on a restrictive diet, it can be very difficult when you're traveling to try and find restaurants which will cater for your needs, and sometimes
Yes.
that can be cost prohibitive as well. And then the other one is, of course, seniors or early retirees who just want to go somewhere and spend some time and
Mm-hmm.
just a month somewhere in the sun or somewhere different, somewhere different from where they are. And that can be a great way of traveling as well, because when you are retirees, sometimes your finances are very strapped, and
Yep.
Yes.
it is a win-win situation for both the homeowner and you. You get to have free accommodation, and they get someone to look after their two most precious,
Exactly.
their
Their
dog,
pet and their home.
their
Yeah.
pet, and their home.
Yeah. And you,
Boy, my wheels
you,
are turning.
yeah, I know. And you do this now with your partner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it is couples can, or two people that are traveling together can do the house sitting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So I did quite a few by myself as
Mm-hmm.
a solo female, and then with my partner as well. Some people will prefer a partner, sometimes especially if they're country sits, but I've also done a lot of country sits where I've been by myself, and I had a hilarious one. Can I tell you about this one? So,
Please.
Yes.
so it was in Canada, and the couple were in Fernie, and they had a Belgian Malinois. So, absolutely gorgeous dog. But
Beautiful.
and they wanted me to meet them at Calgary Airport. So I went to Calgary Airport, and they met me with dog and car. I got into the car with the dog, said goodbye to them, and drove 7 hours to their house in Fernie.
My gosh.
And on the way, I stopped to get a burger because that was the only place to eat that I could find that I could drive through. And I was just and it was snowing, by the way, feeding the dog to say, it's okay. We're gonna go straight into your house, and I'm strange, and it's fine. We're gonna be fine with this, aren't we? But
I'm sure after he had his own burger, he was fine.
I know. Yeah. So I ended up being there for 3 weeks, and it was just one of the most beautiful. It was a gorgeous house, and it was just the most amazing house that I could have asked for. And then when it was finished, I drove up to Calgary Airport and dropped the car and the dog off and said goodbye to them. And it was just,
Wow.
but yeah, I mean, I've stayed in some absolutely brilliant places, but what I love so much about it is you have a kitchen, you have a dining room, you have a lounge room, and you don't just have a small boxy hotel room and the same bed every night, which I like. So that's why I started the House Sitting Collective, which, is where I run courses on how to house sit. And
Love this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them is so I've got 3 main courses. There's more coming, but an easy one, just like how to use power words in your application. So power words, all the good words that make people feel comfortable with you and want to take you on. And I've had reviews with that one with people saying, "Oh my God, I use this for my resume."
My
Right.
goodness.
Because so many people don't understand how to use power words. And especially with AI now, sometimes it's just so easy to get AI to write something, and
Hmm.
it can be absolute dross. I sort of teach you, right? Okay, these are the power words, and this is how to structure it in a sentence. And I think that's kind of really quite a good thing to do, because so many of us, we have Google Maps or any other AI thing, and it's so easy to become complacent. Then I've got another course, which is kind of a middle course, and then I've got the big one, which is how to do house sitting, and I go through absolutely everything in it. And it's great instruction. It's a great lifestyle. So yes, my partner and I, we do it probably between 4 to 5 months a year, and the rest of the time we're hiking. Yeah.
Oh,
Nice. I
Yeah.
love that.
yes. I'm excited for this. I love this.
Me too.
So you have a blog called Soul Treader. What does the name mean to you?
Soul, and then treader as in walking.
Walking.
Yeah. And is it a good name? Probably not. Nobody can ever spell it.
Love it,
And I
actually.
and I have to keep repeating it. So, but I know, who cares?
I love Treader with
Mm,
soul. I mean, that
mm,
just,
mm.
it's really intentional.
Yeah.
So, what have the trails taught you about yourself that everyday life couldn't?
Um, that I am way more capable than I thought I was, or than I imagined. Not that I imagined myself being capable and doing wilderness hikes. I got into it kind of slowly. I didn't, get right do start off with a trek across Greenland straight away, but it really did. It taught me to persevere, and it taught me that I can persevere. It showed me that I could persevere. It showed me that I can try, through trial and error, I will make something work. For example, I was on a hike the other day in the Grand Canaries, and a piece of my tent broke. Now, I can fix a broken pole and I can fix a ripped piece of fabric on my tent, but this one particular piece I could not fix. And I got everything that I had in my pack out, and I bound it, and I managed to make a makeshift shelter for the night. But it really was part of, well, I have to do this because I have to have shelter tonight. And you really need to push yourself to find solutions for everything. And it also taught me that a lot about my gut instinct. I kind of feel, no, I don't think I'm going the right way. Something tells me I'm not going the right way, or those clouds over there, they don't look safe. They look like thunderstorm clouds, or anything like that. It can be anything. And you also, your gut instinct. Am I thirsty? And if I'm thirsty, am I dehydrated? Or am I stumbling? Am I just low on electrolytes? Am I tired? All sorts of things can come into play where you have to sort of watch your body. It's taught me to really to know my body, and also just really hone in on my instinct, because as I was saying before, we've got AI this and AI that.
Hmm.
Now we don't have to think for ourselves anymore. Yeah, that's one thing.
So if someone listening feels like adventure belongs to only the younger, the braver, the freer, what would you gently tell them?
Well, I hope I can be an inspiration and tell them that no, it's never too late to get out and do something. I said confidence shows up after you do. So, yes, you might feel very uncomfortable doing something, but you just take a baby step and just do. If you wanted to start hiking, you don't go on a major big hike by yourself straight away. You just do a short hike and time it maybe 15 minutes in and 15 minutes back out in a local trail. And then next time you might be able to go a little bit more, a little further, as your confidence allows, because the more you do something, the more confidence you will get. And that goes with solo travel as well.
If you guys are up for it, I want to do a little rapid fire session. So, mountains or coast?
Mountains.
Same.
Yeah, mountains.
Yeah. Solo hike or shared journey? That's a hard one, I think.
Sorry, what was that?
A solo hike or a shared journey? I think sometimes we need me time.
Never been on a solo hike.
I
I
haven't
don't
either.
I
Mm,
don't know
How that feels.
how that feels to
yeah,
say if I'd like it more than the shared journey. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I hike now with my partner all the time, and we have agreed that I will go on one solo hike a year because I do
Nice.
like them. I do like the
You need
solitude.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people just do. It just
Mhm.
so early morning trail or golden hour walk, which is better?
I'm a lark. So I'm early morning, way
You're
early
early.
morning.
I figured you probably were. So, what was your most difficult hike? You've been on some pretty big ones.
I think my most difficult hike was probably the Larapinta Trail, which is right in the middle of Australia, in Australia's red centre, on the McDonald Ranges. So if anyone wants to know what the red centre is, it's the middle of Australia. It's called the red centre, not because it's, fiery hot red, but it does get very hot, but it's got red earth. And probably one of the most iconic photos of the red centre is Illaroo, or Ayers Rock it was formerly known. So that's an iconic photo of the big rock in the middle of Australia. The Larapinta Trail is about 300 kilometres, about 200 miles um, north of Illaroo, which is in the size of Australia. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump, really. And
Yeah.
yes, and that was a difficult hike. There was a lot of ascent and descent, and yeah, and it was cold at night and hot during the
Wow.
day, but it was just beautiful. It really was. It was amazing. Yeah.
I bet it
Mm,
was gorgeous.
mm.
Where can our listeners find out more about you?
Okay, Soul Treader, my website. If anybody is interested in doing a hike or any of the hikes that I mentioned, I do have some great resources on my website, which explains what an in-to-in hike is and what items you need to take for that, and also what needs to be in your basic first aid kit. And I've got other
Yeah.
resources such as how to go to the toilet on the trail. Like I have a whole blog post on that because it's quite important,
It
Yeah,
is
it
very
is. It's
important.
very important. Yeah.
and what to wear and all sorts of things like that. So it's not just trail guides. There are some great educational guides in there as well. And if anybody is interested in house sitting, the House Sitting Collective is also where you can find out all about house sitting. And yes, and that, as I said before, it's a great way to travel.
Well, I will be checking that out and taking your course. So,
Right?
as will Shannon, because
Exactly.
I am I am super interested in that.
Yeah.
Really. I would love that.
Yeah. And I definitely have to be the one to take the course because in our travel partnership, Anne just packs
Here
her
we
bag
go.
and shows up. I do
Good on
everything
you, Anne.
else.
Yeah. Uh, to be honest, she will not let me plan because I cannot read a map. I will get us lost. It will happen.
That
Right.
is true.
So,
She cannot read a map, but
Yeah.
yeah,
as far as
it's so bad.
helping plan other things,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm open for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I get the hint. All right.
I do let her pick all the places that we eat and things though, because she's
Oh, okay.
amazing at finding these great places that are off
Yeah.
the beaten path that
Yeah.
you wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
We've had some really yummy local
Yeah.
food.
Yeah. No, it
Yes.
sounds like
So,
you really complement each other as travel
we really
partners.
do.
Yeah.
We
We
really
Yeah.
do.
do.
Well, Belinda, thank you so much for reminding us that adventure doesn't fade, it evolves, and that curiosity, courage, and connection are always available no matter where we are in our lives. And it's been wonderful having you here with us on the show today.
It
Thank,
has been.
thank,
Go ahead.
I was going to say thank you. I just totally interrupted you. Thank you so much.
Before we wrap up today's episode, we have something special to share. If you were inspired by our conversation with Belinda Coker about house sitting and slow travel, she's offering 10% off her house sitting collective courses exclusively for our listeners. Use promo code HSTRAVEL, all lowercase, when you enroll at housesittingcollective.com to receive your discount. We love being able to share resources from our guests that help you travel more intentionally and confidently. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Travel Time Stories. Whether your next adventure is across the world or right outside your front door, we hope this conversation encourages you to listen to that quiet pull towards something more. And until next time, keep traveling and keep making memories for life.